Hey everyone, it's me Amzosufka, and welcome back to a fun little storytime episode where I'll be taking you along for a wild ride through my history with the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. I've been planning to construct a video like this for several years now, but I never had the space in my schedule to put together a coherent timeline until the recent months. Thankfully, since I've been able to draw up a clear roadmap of my relationship with this series from when I was born up until now, I can give some thoughts on how the journey has been so far. In the year 1999, the very first game in the Super Smash Bros. Series titled the name of the franchise dropped with a handful of stages and characters. Nothing too crazy, but it delivered pretty well. Then a mere 2 years later, its sequel, Super Smash Bros. Melee, hit store shelves in late 2001, with some parts of the world not getting the game until the second quarter of 2002. A month after the game released in North America and several months before it arrived in the PAL regions, I was born. Obviously, I didn't come out of the womb playing Super Smash Bros. Or even knowing what it was. It wouldn't be until 2.5 years later in the summer of 2004 that I would have my first interaction with the series I can still recall. My siblings had Super Smash Bros. 64 running on our family's gateway computer in the foyer, sometimes also the dining room, of our home. They could have been running on an MU64, Ultra HLE, or some other early N64 emulator, but I don't remember those specific details whatsoever since I was incredibly young. All I recall is I was looking at Link and Samus on the Hyrule Castle stage and thinking to myself, oh hey, video game characters from that one company we all like. Since I was so young, I had no context for most things, but I'd grown familiar with Nintendo because that's one of the companies that my siblings like quite a bit. Fast forward a year, and I actually played Super Smash Bros. For the first time. Not the N64 one, but rather Melee. A few of my siblings had a CRT set up in the basement near the floor drain of the house with the GameCube hooked up. Normally, I wasn't allowed to play video games due to my mom, but on this rare occasion, my siblings let me play with them. They handed me a controller and I had zero idea what I was doing. I distinctly remember asking if I could play as Metroid or Zelda until my siblings had to fill in the gaps for me and explain that who I was pointing at was Samus and Link. In my mind, I just was using the rule that applies to most video game series where the series is named after the main character. It's still a memory that makes me chuckle to this very day. I played a single round with them on Canaria, which was the go-to stage for them. Even though the stage is legally banned in competitive play, my siblings and I spent hours having a blast on stages that were most certainly not competitively viable. The only stages I can distinctly remember us ever avoiding were ones where the gimmick started to severely disrupt gameplay. In fact, most of the stages we enjoyed playing were legal for years until the Smash community started to collectively build a legal stage list, which was understandably necessary to keep the game alive and make it thrive. As a result of that first time experience with Melee, Coronaria had become one of the most iconic stages in my mind, and it's the first thing I think of when Super Smash Bros. Is ever mentioned. Then 2006 rolled around and the GameCube was 5 years old when the Nintendo Wii dropped in late 2006. I turned 5 at the start of 2007 and there was no new Smash game just yet, so I was still dreaming of Melee and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, quite literally. One of the strangest dreams I ever had as a kid involved me and some Sonic characters getting stuck under a Mad Catz GBA magnifying glass accessory, and then we teleported to Melee's final destination. I don't know what kind of video gaming chocolate I had that night, but anyways, I digress. I continued trying to get my hands on video games in any form, whether it was flash games, dollar store game systems, or begging my siblings to let me play whatever they were playing. This usually included games like Melee, of course, Burnout 3 Takedown, and Sonic Mega Collection. Due to the Wii being super popular when it first launched, it was difficult to come across one on the market, and it wouldn't be until the following year in 2008 when Super Smash Bros. Brawl released that my oldest sibling managed to obtain one. Super Smash Bros. Brawl released and it was a glorious day, or well, my siblings and I thought it was going to be. I remember my oldest sibling bringing home Brawl and seeing Meta Knight and Pit for the first time. I was like, they added flying characters? What? Hey bro, watch your dick. Of course, perhaps this was more exciting to me as a 6-year-old than it was to my older siblings, but nevertheless, at that moment, Meta Knight and Pit became the first of my forever primaries, with Lucas soon joining, which I'll get into later. To be clear, I never mained any single character in Brawl, just as with most Smash titles. One of the best things to ever come out of Brawl was easily the Subspace Emissary. I understand that there were many who didn't find the Subspace Emissary to be a fun time or perhaps even a laborious chore, but I was thrilled with it as a kid and still believe it is the best single player experience we have ever seen in a Super Smash Bros. Title. It took everything that was great about Melee's adventure mode and cranked it up by 150% across the board. There were now CGI cutscenes, characters were going missing, getting turned into trophies, forming alliances on the spot to face off the new evil, and sometimes battling each other in confusion as to what was going on. The opening of Super Smash Bros. Brawl is a testament to just how sick Subspace really was. Combining Subspace Emissary with the fact that Snake and Sonic were the first third-party characters to ever show up in the franchise solidified the game as pretty dope in my young mind. And not to mention that single-player modes for Melee had been given co-op support. Unfortunately, while the features of Brawl were amazing, the gameplay itself was sort of garbage. On the first day that we got the game, I remember my older siblings making commentary that it was missing the snappiness of Melee. Now, mind you, I hadn't played enough Melee at this point to really notice the difference, but the difference became much more noticeable as the years went by and I began to understand game design. My siblings worked to unlock everything in Brawl and then dropped it to return to Super Smash Bros. 64 since it was released on the Virtual Console in late 2009. At this point, I believe they were tired of playing so much Melee, and Brawl proved not to be the follow-up that they were looking for, so returning to Smash 64 seemed like the most fresh option. I continued to play Brawl for quite a while, but eventually joined them in playing Smash 64 throughout 2010 since there wasn't much left to do in Brawl and my knowledge of the tournament scene for the game was non-existent at that point. I switched to mainly playing Smash 64 for the next 2 years, where I picked up Fox and Ness as primaries, with Mario and Kirby being my secondaries. I enjoyed the quick pace of Fox, and I grew an attachment to Ness since I was a fan of Lucas and Brawl thanks to the Subspace Emissary, and became a huge fan of the Earthbound aka Mother franchise as a result. Mario was a solid all-around character, and I found out slowly but surely that Kirby, who I originally picked because I'm a big Kirby fan, is top-tier material in Smash 64. 2 years later, I would return to Super Smash Bros. Melee as my main game of interest once I had learned about the advanced tech of the game and started browsing Super Smash Bros. Forum boards more often. Since my siblings and I would often take Super Smash Bros. Pretty seriously, I was desperate to get really good at the series, and when I learned that Melee had advanced tech that could speed up the pace of the game by a tremendous amount, I was committed. I spent years trying to learn how to wave dash, dash dance, shuffle, moonwalk, and a myriad of other advanced options. Since resources were slim back then, I mostly relied on forum posts and YouTube videos. By the time 2014 had rolled around, with both the 20XX Melee mod and Anther's Ladder finally out in the wild, Super Smash Bros. 4 was on the horizon, so I was on my own in terms of figuring out how to improve with the game. Naturally, the progress I was making was not super amazing, but I was learning how to move around more effectively, do aerials out of shield, and play a more balanced defensive game. A couple of months after I had returned to Melee, I also picked up Project M, a modification for Brawl that made it play more like Melee. This was like heaven to me since it allowed me to enjoy all the content of Brawl, but with the faster mechanics of Melee that I was growing to like more and more. At this point, I stopped playing Smash 64 for the most part and slowly played Melee or various Project M mod packs of Brawl. This is when I picked up Fox and Mario as my co-mains in Melee since I had played them in Smash 64 and took on Roy and Young Link as secondaries. I kept Ness as a pocket since just like Fox and Mario, I had played him in Smash 64. But Ness was much worse in Melee than Smash 64 in my opinion, so I turned him into a pocket pick. Kirby went from glory to garbage from 64 to Melee, so he got dropped as a viable option. I still sometimes play him for fun, however, because, as stated before, I'm a fan of the series. Then in 2012, I had received one of my older siblings' Black Wii consoles that was a part of the Wii Sports Resort bundle for Christmas that they had bought in 2010. 2 years after my oldest sibling got the white one with Super Smash Bros. Brawl in 2008. And loading mods to Brawl's Stage Builder mode was my entry point into the Wii homebrew scene, where I quickly discovered Letter Bomb, a Wii message board exploit for getting the homebrew channel on the console. This led to me modding the hell out of my favorite games and playing titles such as CTGPR, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Project M, etc. In PM, my mains were largely the same as Melee, except Young Link got replaced with Mewtwo since Mewtwo was much better in PM than he was in Melee, and Young Link was not available as a character unless you had the Legacy XP pack, which wasn't tournament viable. I also continued to play Pit, Meta Knight, and Lucas since I discovered them in Brawl and still liked them a lot. With Melee and Project M being my main focus, I didn't switch Smash games until the demo for the 3DS version of Smash 4 dropped in the fall of 2014. At this point, I had started collecting game consoles, and I believe I had managed to get my hand on a Midnight Purple 3DS thanks to the scouting efforts of my dad. I remember my siblings purchasing the Wii U version of Smash 4 the same fall, since the release window between the two versions was offset by a month or so. I sold my original 3DS in favor of a new 3DS XL the following year and spent the summer of 2015 playing Smash 4 Wii U with my siblings. I had no mains in Smash 4 since there were so many characters to choose from, and I never found one character I wanted to stick with. So I ended up playing Fox, Lucas, Ness, Mario, Mewtwo, Pit, Meta Knight, Greninja, and whoever else was available that caught my interest. Despite having the demo Smash 4 3DS for months, I didn't actually end up buying the game until well after we had bought the Wii U version. This was largely because video games were too expensive to purchase brand new off the store shelf, and it wasn't until the following fall of 2015 that my dad helped me get the 3DS version of Smash 4, which I played religiously after spending the summer of 2015 trying to get good at the Wii U version with my siblings. I will say that when Smash 4 first released on the Wii U, I was not a big fan of it in terms of the gameplay mechanics. I admittedly approved of it a whole lot more over Brawl's sluggish gameplay, but it was a far cry from the speed and fluidity of Melee. I would regularly get frustrated with the more limited options of Smash 4, and so I went back to playing Melee and Project M during 2016 while still playing 3DS Smash 4. It was when the summer of 2016 hit that I started playing Smash 3DS online religiously and found the now horribly dreaded app known as Amino through the standalone Smash Amino mobile app. This was back when Amino was not a complete train wreck and actually had some value to offer. It basically offered the joys of blogging in forums in a combined package with SMS-style chat rooms. This made it super easy to find other players, and I started organizing online tournaments with other people and hopping around between various amateur teams. Around this time, I also became a member of Smashpedia, which is basically the much more inferior version of Smash Wiki that no serious Smash Bros. Player would reference. However, back in the mid-2010s, Wikia, as fandom.com was called back then, and Amino were nowhere near as bad as the current iterations. I mean, Wikia was pretty bad back then, but Amino was promising. After hosting Smash 4 tournaments online for a summer, discovering Super Smash Bros. Legacy, playing an older version of Smash 2 Omega, and following the entirety of EVO 2016, which led to me getting back into other fighting games from my childhood, I went on a hiatus from playing Smash Bros. Competitively that fall. By the next year, all of my attention had shifted to other endeavors, such as trying to build an Ocarina of Time ROM hack from scratch, which went pretty poorly, and starting various game development projects that never fully took form. I was still playing games like Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Marvel's Capcom 1, and other titles in the background on and off along with Smash, but it was nothing of a commitment. Due to the Nintendo Switch releasing early in 2017, most of my attention in gaming was tied up with said console, and I was probably off hunting for Korok seeds day by day in Breath of the Wild if I wasn't busy working on some random video game idea. It wasn't until the spring of 2018 when my interest in the Smash franchise would be fully reignited with the announcement of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in the form of a teaser. Everyone was shook, and the hype road to release was real. That summer, Nintendo revealed the game in full at E3 2018, which blew my mind. I still remember screaming like a little kid with my older sibling as we watched Nintendo unveil a Smash game that was home to almost every single stage that appeared in the Smash Bros. Series with all of the characters. Seeing only fighting Bayonetas felt surreal, and it almost felt like Nintendo looked at the efforts of Smash Bros. Brawl mod packs and thought, hell yeah, we can do this and so much more. Ridley was there, the Ice Climbers were back, Pichu was rolling around with Pikachu, it was simply amazing. I continued to religiously follow news about the game until released at the end of 2018, where my oldest sibling and I went to the midnight launch of the game. Getting my hands on the game initially, I was blown away by the massive roster and stage selection, but as the weeks went by, my excitement turned into disappointment. World of Light was not even close to Subspace Emissary in design, single player modes for the first 3 Smash games that went MIA in Smash 4 ended up not returning, there was nothing to do except collect stickers, oh sorry I mean spirits. Play through an extended event match mode, or play in online arenas where getting a stable connection would always be a 50-50 chance since Nintendo had some of the worst online servers. By March of 2019, I'd completely dropped Ultimate after buying, selling, and returning the game multiple times. I was pretty conflicted about Smash Ultimate since I'd spent a year following the game's news cycle and truly thought it was going to be the Smash game of all time. Unfortunately, my expectations were mismatched with what the product actually was at launch, and I thought that perhaps it wasn't a problem of me not liking the game, and that I just needed to get better. But eventually I realized that the physics of the game and pacing, while faster than Brawl and Smash 4, didn't feel transitionally smooth, and that momentum was a little all over the place in regard to knockback, combo follow-ups, and recovery options. It certainly didn't have the succinct flow of Melee, and with both Melee and Project M having been my primary games for years at that point, adjusting to Smash Ultimate was simply not worth the time nor complications. Ironically enough, after I switched from game consoles to a PC permanently, I forgot to sell the last copy of Smash Ultimate I had bought, and so I'm still stuck with the game. After dropping Smash Ultimate, my attention shifted back to other endeavors as my relationship with competitive gaming in general deteriorated, and I figured that there was better things I could be doing with my life. I was a part of a gaming club at my high school the year prior in 2017, but it died off within a single semester, and by the time I had reached university, I was barely playing video games as much as I once used to. However, curiosity did get the best of me during my first year, and I found a Melee group at my university who I connected with on several occasions over the course of my 4 years there. Unfortunately, due to the geography of where I grew up, getting involved in the competitive Smash scene in person was incredibly difficult, and after the community-wide meltdown of 2020, where a lot of unsavory behaviors came to light, I'm glad that my involvement with the community in my younger years was only ever remote for my own well-being. Nowadays, I mostly just play Melee here and there casually via Slippy, and watch these young kids who have grown up with Uncle Punch's training pack and the 20XX training pack destroy me online with their spreadsheet knowledge and rage over missing a shield drop. Thankfully, I'm past that point, but I have been considering returning to Super Smash Bros. On a regular competitive basis, just for the hell of it, to see if I can find any fun in it again. I occasionally still will play Ultimate with others in person, since I think the game has definitely improved since launch, but still doesn't quite hit the highs of Melee in my mind. But that being said, this about wraps it up for my history with the Smash franchise. If you found the story time to be a nice listen, then be sure to stick around for more projects from me in the future. Thanks for watching, see you guys in the next one.
Hey! Time up!